Hi everyone. Okay, I got a question over on Instagram and I thought I would answer it in a video that I could post everywhere just because I think a lot of people have this question. Yes, I'm in my bathroom. I just got ready for the day. So let's do this. The question is, how did I get into wrestling? So I started to watch pro wrestling back in 1994 and I was staying over at a babysitter's house with some friends. And the reason I was at babysitter's was actually, and this ties into the story, my mom and the mom of the other people I was with were probably on a bender. My mom was an addict, so I would spend a lot of time at babysitters or friends who were not addicts when she would go on a bender. Anyway, so it was the night of SummerSlam in '94, and the match that cemented my love of pro wrestling was the Undertaker versus Undertaker match, which was the main event of that pay per view, and I just thought the storytelling was insane. Like, what do you mean this guy is dead and he was gone and he's come back, but there's another one of him? Interestingly enough, it's a storyline that people pan collectively, like commentators on wrestling. Is near and dear to my heart forever because that's what really just got me so fascinated about this world of pro wrestling and especially the WWE. So I watched all through my childhood, teen years, and being a girl fan, like being a little girl who was a fan of pro wrestling in the Attitude Era, was a little hard place to be. And one of the bright spots for me during the era, of course, is Joni. I loved China. I just thought she was so strong. But then, of course, came Lita. And I've talked about this before, but just to reiterate, I just thought she was the most beautiful, phenomenal, like strong, but sexy woman I had seen. And she was feminine, but she just was her own person. I just always felt like, wow, she lives her life the way she wants. And then you read her book and you hear about going to Mexico. I was just like, wow, she truly created a life of her own design. And I just believed, oh my goodness, if she can do that, I can do that too. So I was just so inspired by her to believe that, wow, I can do whatever I want in this life. It wasn't about being a pro wrestler for me. It was just about that proof that, wow, you can make your own story and your own path. And so what wrestling was for me through all those years was a place to dream. It was a place to escape to. It's a place where giants walk and the good guy ultimately at some point wins, and you could be strong and loud and have an opinion. And I just was so much of what I didn't have in life growing up in the situation I grew up in. I didn't really have a voice. No one cared about what was best for me a lot of the times, and I got to be in this world and just I loved it so much. Went to college, got out of it, got into CrossFit, really got into other things, was competing in beauty pageants. I got into beauty pageants actually in the mid 90s, watching them around the same time I got into wrestling. But always in the back of my mind, people would ask me, of course I'm a wrestling fan. I loved wrestling. I grew up watching wrestling. I never was ashamed of it. I would still go to friends' houses to watch pay-per-views who were still watching it and that kind of thing. So stayed connected just on the edges, right? Just things going on. And of course, anytime Amy would come back, Lita, I would be so excited, and people would tell me, everyone knew I was obsessed with her. Everyone knew she was my favorite. Everyone knew what she meant to me as a kid growing up. And I actually always followed her on Instagram because of that. Fast forward to around this time last year, I was just really struggling. My marriage is fine. All that was good. I always like to say that because people always assume the worst when you say you were struggling. But I was just work-wise going through a hard time. I was getting ready to compete. I didn't feel myself. I was having trouble just finding my center again. And that was when Amy, of course, came back to do that tag team with Becky Lynch. And because I was still following her on Instagram, it popped up and it just reignited my love for this and a reminder of what wrestling is, which is this crazy world of storytelling and fairy tales, yet not. And just, I always think it's love stories and it's about going for goals and battles. And I just loved everything about it. And it reminded me how much I loved it. So I just dived headfirst right back in and found such an amazing community to hang out with doing it. So thank you all for being part of that. And yeah, thank you to my friend who runs a Lita site. I'm going to tag her in this Instagram account for asking the question, because I love talking about how I got into wrestling and why I love it so much to this day. All right, let me know if you have more questions about it. Happy to answer them all. Bye.